Sziasztok! Hello everybody, this is the second masterclass of Prima Anima Academy in collaboration with CEEA Animation, and I would like to invite Nicolai Troshinsky to hold his masterclass.
Thank you. Oh, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I'm Nicolai Troshinsky. I'm an illustrator, animator, and video game designer. And very happy to be here. It's my first film many years ago. I won an award here in Prima Anima. And now I'm back as a jury and to talk about my latest and biggest project to date, which is Card Shark. It's a video game about card cheats in 18th century France. So what I'm going to talk about, because there's many things to talk about, but I'm going to focus on the art design and art style and animation and why certain choices were made, how they were made, and things I learned from that. When you make, this was 3 years of work and very complicated project. And when you make a big complicated project like this, you learn a lot of things. And I've learned a lot of things. And so I think the useful thing for a talk is to share the things you learn so that we all hopefully learn something together. So I'm going to focus on many lessons, some things that were new to me, some things that were not entirely new, but working on this project made me realize better. And a lot, because it's a game about cheaters, I will focus a lot about cheating, but cheating in art. How do I personally cheat a lot? And how do I encourage or invite you to think about cheating and shortcuts and tricks? So I think this talk is interesting for animators, illustrators, especially if you're interested in or curious about work on video games and how it differs from working on a film. Also for programmers or game designers curious to work with specific artists. What else? Yes, this talk will contain spoilers. So if you have not seen the game, well, it's impossible to talk about something without revealing that something, right? So I will reveal some of the surprises and ideas in the game, however, not everything. So still, if you're curious after watching this, there's plenty to discover in the game still. If you don't know what the game is like, we're going to play a trailer so you can see what it is about. Well, I'm sorry, the video is not playing very well. It's chopping frames. So, well, you can look it up later if you want. So, first thing. Okay, sorry, I don't have my notes. So yeah, first cheat, let's say. Like, the first cheat is previous work. Is the idea that no work comes from nowhere, right? There's always some previous background that made that possible. So the art style of the game, a lot of players, a lot of press have picked up on. They found it really unique, interesting, different. As I say, it doesn't come from nowhere. Like this is, first one is White Nights, Fyodor Dostoevsky's novel, a book I illustrated like 5 years ago. This is an unpublished project with my friend Anna Peth. And both works, they're using a very similar technique. So this is monoprinting. It's a technique I've been working with a lot. And I've tried many different ways of using it. And so the experience with this technique and the variety of ways of using it that I've been doing over the years kind of helped bring the style of the game together, especially this one. Here we are experimenting a lot and trying very different things. And this kind of make me understand better what you could do and how you could do it. So previous work is important and it helps you a lot. Other stuff, this is a project I was making like a year before. And it's what I call dynamic illustrations. This was an experiment. The idea was that I thought you could make kind of like animated GIFs, that is animations, short animations for websites. But instead of being a fixed movie, they are a tiny program that is running and has its own code and its own internal logic. So this is a tiny video of that, but this is on my website and you can check it out. And it's different every time. The camera movement is randomized and the characters that appear and disappear are also randomized. So you can run this forever and we keep giving you variations of this idea. So it's always the same and never the same. And it's like this infinite loop that is never exactly repeating. So this already also using this monoprinting textures, this already paving some of the work. This other project, this is Forest of Sleep. This is a failed video game project. I worked 3 years on this, and this was a video game based on Eastern European folk tales. And we worked 3 years on this, and a lot of the visual language also in animation. Oh, this is not good. Come on, you can do it. Well, so this project was super complicated, very ambitious. It was a failure. Like we didn't manage to make it work. It was very complicated, but it helped me understand so many things about how video games work, what you can do, what you cannot do. I established this animation style, which I built from on Card Shark. So. Okay, now it works. So it's also important to understand, like, a lot of the times, a lot of things don't work. And the things that don't work, you learn from. And so a big project sometimes is the result of a failed big project somewhere else that is not so visible, right? Okay. This is not working correctly because it's showing the editor mode. How can we show this? No, because it won't play the videos. How do you show this? If I go here, it won't work, right? No, it won't work. Well, it's not showing, like it's showing all this nonsense, you know? So, no, but, okay, so this should not show all this editor stuff, you know? So, convert what? No, this is the editor. I don't want to be able to type here, you know? Well, okay, we'll carry on because otherwise it's going to take forever. Yeah, but it doesn't work because it splits the screen, so it doesn't work for them. Yeah, okay, let's go here. Let's just carry on like this. Okay, so first big question when making this project. This is a video game set in 18th century France. So what matters to me, I don't care about style. In that I don't care about the style of having a consistent style as an artist. I care about the project having a style. So looking for coherence. How can I achieve something that is referencing this time period and the art of this time period and the atmosphere without exactly doing that? Because I don't want to paint an oil painting. It's too much work. I'm a lone artist. I have to do all these things. And I have to simplify somehow. But I have to also capture the essence of these things. So I'm looking for a way to condense things, simplify, and capture this idea. And the solution was this technique, monoprinting. Monoprinting is a process of spreading paint on a surface and stamping it. And as I was saying, I've been using this technique a lot. And this to me is the shortcut. This to me is another trick. It's a way to, while staying kind of simple and modern in the style of illustration, still make reference to this aesthetic of oil paint and classical painting. So there are like hundreds of these tiny little textures and blobs made for the game that were later assembled digitally. And to me, the interesting thing about monoprinting is that it gives you a shortcut. There is an inherent trick in it for me, which is that as human beings, we tend to find organic detail beautiful. We live in an organic world, and we perceive the intricacies and irregularities of organic material naturally beautiful. And I think that's the reason why digital artists tend to use digital brushes that imitate actually handmade brushes. And 3D artists, they add like scratches and dust everywhere on all the textures. Like you need this organic irregularity, imprecision of the physical world, which you find beautiful. And monoprinting gives me that for free. I believe that the tool should work for you and do the hard work for you. So this is just, you spread paint, you stamp it, and its irregularities are immediately naturally beautiful. So it's a fantastic shortcut. It has the disadvantage that you have to process it later. So this is how it works. Everything is printed in black and white, and then assembled and colored digitally in lots of layers. So you have this shortcut, which is immediate. You stamp a blob, that doesn't have to have a very, like it's just blobs of paint, but its detail and intricacy is naturally beautiful. And so for me, it's like the advantage of both worlds. You get to do simple drawings, simple shapes that force you to simplify, because this technique does not allow tiny details. They get lost. But at the same time, you get the tiny detail, intricate detail of the irregularities of the paint. It has a disadvantage that you have to process it later, which is long, time-consuming, but it's a trade-off. Like, I believe you cannot achieve this digitally, not so efficiently. So in my sense, it's worth it. So this is the digital process, and the thing is, no, if I deselect, doesn't play. You basically enhance the traditional with the digital. So instead of using digital for everything, I think it makes sense to use it for what it's useful for. So, okay, again, the technique should do the hard work for you. And so the hard work in monoprinting is layering a lot of stuff, because it becomes a mess and it's difficult to control and things misalign. But okay, then you do the hard part digitally. Like you do the hard part of drawing organically, and then you do the hard part that is for organic digitally. And so everything is assembled like this, and the both processes enhance each other. So the other big challenge with this game is that there was not going to be any camera movements. Going to be just static pictures of the world, like big paintings. That was the idea. This is due to one basic constraint is just me doing all this design, but also because it's a game about sitting at a table playing cards and cheating. So it's not about walking, it's not about exploring, it's about sitting at a table and cheating your opponents. So most of the action will happen at a table, and you don't have to go far. So the question is, how do you build the world? How do you make it feel like a big living world that doesn't feel claustrophobic? So these images are very important. And a lot of these big images of exteriors are used only once or twice. This is a big investment. They're like used to establish a location, and then we go inside and we play cards and we spend the time inside. So these were a big investment, but because this was the only way you could get the impression of a living world, they were kind of important investment, I think, because I care a lot about worlds feeling alive and populated and full of detail. So if the camera cannot move, you have to work with the limitations. And here's another trick, another cheat, is that the design is deliberately flat, and that is practical. The character will only walk left and right. We have no reason to make real depth. We have no reason to make it more complicated than it needs to be. So we're working with very flat image. But it's an opportunity to cheat. The opportunity to cheat here is to work with composition in playful ways. Like these ornaments of the wall, they don't really make much sense. They kind of suggest an idea of perspective, but not very correct. And in the end, but then it's not in perspective, because you can go through that door and you don't become smaller as you move. So it's all this inconsistency and incoherency, but it's consistent throughout the game. So you can train the viewer and the player to accept this kind of stuff and then get away with a simpler design. It's a common thing I see in video games, especially, that people complicate themselves too much. They make perspectives and shadows, and then everything has to look exact or it looks wrong. And so if you establish your simplification early, you can get away with a lot of tricks and a lot of nonsense that the player just accepts. So it's kind of similar like conditioning in a magic trick, somebody. Like there's some ideas of perspective to trick your mind into believing, but at the same time it's broken all of the time. So this constant game of suggesting something and never exactly doing it, and always doing it in a way that is more implanting an idea than actually showing the thing. And this also allows for many tricks of depth that are different. Like you can play with suggesting a more natural thing or a more unnatural thing, and different kind of camera positions when there are actually not different camera positions, right? like here, it seems like the perspective is much sharper, like the camera is a lot lower. And then there's always something in the foreground to also trick you into believing that this is an actual space, even though you never walk this space. Also, all the ceilings are huge. Even in the poor tavern, poor space, the ceiling is stupidly huge. And the chandeliers are impossibly large. I wanted this to be playful in this way. This is also part of the idea that the camera cannot move. So you exaggerate everything, you play with it, and you suggest more than actually being naturalistic. So to build on top of this, there's motion tricks. There are many effects to make the scene feel alive. Like I care that every pixel changes. Even though the camera doesn't move, the characters are small compared to the rest of the screen. Everything has to move a little. So there are a lot of very, very, very simple tricks. Like the flames of the chandelier simply scale up and down. These tiny dust blobs, they just float. And the color of the entire scene gradually changes a little. Super cheap stuff. This is like basic effects. But all together, they build this illusion that you're actually in a place that is alive. And I like this idea of finding the cheapest way that gets the effect done. No complex shaders and effects and whatnot. All basic stuff. Here a really simple suggestion of the leaves. You can see how artificial it is. It's really clear that this is just static layers. But again, all together, and the sky is just a single image scrolling by. No? So everything is deliberately very artificial. But again, because you establish it early and you don't try to disguise it, and you just present it as this is what it is, audience accepts it. And it's fine with it. Nobody questions that. There's also this water effect, which looks nice when you don't pay attention. And then if you look closely, it's just a flat texture that is scrolling by, and these little particles that appear disappear. And the cheapest thing ever. No? I even managed to do that little wine, because here you're playing in a boat, and the boat is moving. That's the idea. And so you get that effect on the water. And it's just 3 layers moving left and right and scaling a little bit. Again, this is using the same logic that we use for the trees. So just reusing stuff all over the place and finding the simplest way. This, again, you could use like a complex effect that does mesh deformation or whatever. And this was done in like 5 minutes. And so I really find it very fun, this challenge of finding the cheapest trick. The other problem was here with populating the world. I care a lot about you're traveling around France and part of Europe, playing all these different places, cheating people. This has to feel like a living world. And it has to feel like larger than what you see. Because you cannot pan the camera, you cannot explore. You have to get the impression that there's more going on. And there's a lot of people, and it's alive. So you have to do all these side characters that just walk around and populate the world, which was a big challenge because it's a ton of work to do. And here an interesting lesson is a common thing in video games would be to generate these characters, like make some kind of algorithm that you build a bunch of like torsos and heads and legs and whatnot, and the game automatically generates a bunch of variations of that. The reality of that is that in practice, it usually takes a lot longer than that, because the algorithm would get a lot of things wrong. it won't look correct, you'll have to do a lot of back and forth, and unless your game really built around that, it's not worth the investment. So I ended up doing by hand all these combinations. So I built it similarly. I built like a bunch of torsos, a bunch of heads, but I ended up doing all, like for every scene that was populated with people, I did like 20 or 30 background people by hand, assembling these variations. And while it's a lot of work, because there's in total maybe, I don't know, 400 of these characters throughout the game that I had to do by hand, one by one. In the end, it was simpler. Like sometimes the dumb solution, you just do it by hand, is better. Because first, it's foolproof. You know it will look as you made it. You know, the algorithm can fail. When you do this procedural generation, it can generate something incorrect, even after you tested it a lot. And then it felt a bit like choosing the crew, you know, like you're a film director and the extras come and, yeah, you put this jacket and you put this hat. And I like how this image looks with specifically these people. So I know that I also have control of exactly how each image looks. So I learned that I was tempted to propose, yeah, maybe we should do this, you know, and then I started doing it, and I was like, this is not worth it. I just do it. It just takes me an afternoon to pair image, to fill this with people and put them, and I can have precise control and know that everything looks as I want it to look. This is another example of, like, I wanted to have these big populated places. Yeah, another interesting cheat. So, because everything is static in these scenes, and doing a lot of specific animations for everybody, it's time consuming. And it takes long. It's a lot of work. So, how do you make these scenes dynamic? Well, there's another cheat. You can do things off camera. Between shots, you can make changes. So, I took every advantage, every opportunity possible to play with this. So here, for instance, so the scene changes entirely, no? All these people appear. I did these kind of games every time we had the opportunity. Because you don't have to animate how all these people arrive, no? And how this scene changes. And it feels a lot more dramatic, a lot more interesting than when you actually do it. Here's a similar example later. There are a bunch of these in the game. I didn't put everything. But here again, there's a duel. And the nuns have arrived to look at the fight. So it's a fun thing you can do with. And then there's illusions. Okay, so this one I was very proud of because it solved a complicated problem in very short amount of time. The basic idea is we needed to solve several problems at once. One is traveling around. Like one of the basics of the game is you're traveling around Europe, all these places. So the idea of moving has to be expressed in the game. We really wanted to have like a carriage that you ride on, right? But problem, okay, how do you show this? Now I have to draw massive landscapes that's passed by, and what happens when you travel to different parts that are completely geographically different. Now we have to have lots of, like, the production just explodes, no, in terms of complexity. And second problem we had is the basic of the game is that you are an apprentice of a cheat. You have like a master, a master who is guiding you. You join this guy who is like a fake count who is scamming around people, and you join him in his travels, and he teaches you all these tricks, and he gradually teaches you. So there's a lot of this, you have to rehearse. Like a real magician, you would rehearse a trick before doing it. But where do you rehearse? So we have this other problem. We have to have a space. And so we, like, yeah, you could say, yeah, they go to some inn and rent a room, and then they spend some time rehearsing. But then, okay, we have to do 20 inns and 20 rooms. And also different tricks require different things, like require a bigger table or a smaller table, or they are like, there's more players, less players, etc., etc. So how do we simulate all of this? And so the idea is that you don't show it, you just suggest it. And so I came up with this simple solution. Which is, the landscape is inside the carriage. You get this idea of moving. Everything outside the carriage is in this dark gray suggested tone. And there's just a suggestion of movement inside the carriage. So because the window is so small, you just have to show like some trees and some hills, and you don't care. And you get the idea. So you can completely suggest the thing and not have to make it. And it's more interesting to look at, like the result is better, and it's so much less work. And we did the same with the idea of rehearsing. Okay, instead of having a room, they just imagine themselves sitting. So we have this abstract room in the middle of nowhere, and I added this shades of the trees passing by to suggest that they're still in the carriage, and they're just picturing all of this in their head. And they're just such a good cheats that they're just discussing what they're going to do and imagining it and visualizing it. And so, yeah, you just don't show the thing. Okay, so it's important to talk about things that didn't work. Because not everything works. So what went wrong here was just this sheer amount of work that this implies. I didn't realize how much work it was to make these backgrounds. This is not even all the pieces for that background. There are many more. So drawing all of this and scanning it and putting it into layers and coloring everything is just very time consuming. It's very simple to do, but it takes a huge amount of time. And I wish I realized that earlier and organized better the production, because this got out of hand very quickly. One other thing I learned with this is I got help from my friend Anapeth, when I did that unpublished book project. She was helping me with this, but she's a super talented illustrator. And she was helping me because she had a lot of experience also with monoprinting, so it was very quick for her to do these textures and assemble them because she immediately understood what I needed. Problem, she's a really good artist. So this is boring work. A lot of it is like, in the bulk of it, she's helping me because she likes me and she likes the project, but it is not a work that gives a lot of satisfaction because she's not being an author of something new. She's just doing mechanical work. So I learned that it's a really bad idea to get somebody very talented to help you with boring work, because you're burning that person. That person is really good, is really talented, is frustrated that he cannot use its talent, even though it understands why you need the thing, even though it wants to help you. So it was not a good idea. We ended up in a good solution later, when it was a bit too late, still useful, which was to get help from a younger student that was just out of school. We gave him the job. He was super happy to help us because he had no experience. and he learned a lot, and he did it super fast, much faster than us, and it's a win-win. So basically, it took me too long to understand that you need the right person for the right job, and especially not to waste the energy of somebody who's really good at something that anybody can do, because yeah, it's not useful. The other problem was building all of these scenes. Like, this is our like internal scripting logic to build how the things work. Okay, a character stands up and goes here and plays this animation and speaks this dialogue. This is all this node system that very quickly gets incredibly complex and really big. And this is a ton of work. And so another problem I discovered is if you're working as a single artist, building all of these things, this is extremely hard to delegate. Because again, this is a mechanical and a technical task. But how do you explain to somebody what you need? You're building this scene. You made all these animations. You made the scene design. You need the scene to flow in a specific way at a specific rhythm. How do you explain to somebody else what do they need to put here to make that work? The only real solution is to do it yourself, because we tried, and it was a disaster. We tried to have another younger programmer help me with this. I tried to explain, and I spent so much time just writing a document with the description of this, which was basically doing this in text instead of doing it in the tool. So it's stupid, you know? And then he got it wrong, of course, because he's not in your head. So he doesn't understand all the little subtleties of things. I would go through the scene he made, and I had to change everything. So basically, I don't know what solution there is to this, but this is a difficult problem. Like, if you have a single person who is like has the vision of how the thing has to look and work and flow, that basically creates this bottleneck. Like, everything goes through you, and it can only go as fast as you can go. And the solution is not to add more people and get more money, because it just doesn't help. So I guess next time my lesson was, well, you have to account for this. You have to account that it's slow and it's very hard to help. Or maybe you have to plan really early, how do you structure work so somebody can truly help you. But this was a very hard problem that we didn't solve, and that was just me doing a lot of this and going through things. The other thing I didn't manage to succeed, I believe, is the map. We have this map where you travel around, and you can see it's pretty basic, just the names of the places, and that's it. There are a lot of tests to do this. I think it works. I'm happy, but there were so many tests for things to make it more interesting, which failed. Like none of this worked. For me, all of this will look wrong. And I was kind of happy to make it just simple, really, really simple, because it was less work and I was already overwhelmed with everything else. But all of this stuff we tried, I didn't like. Like, this looked like fridge magnets or something. Doesn't look like places. So there were a lot of tries to make this, look more interesting, and none of it worked. And then there's the amount of stuff, no? Like, there are almost 2,000 individual pieces just for characters. So all drawn by hand in China ink, and then scanned, and then colored, and then put together. And I honestly, I wanted to do more. I wanted to have like carriages and animals and people on horseback, and like really, in the end, it's just people. So while I think it's still a success because there's enough variety and nobody needs more, if I had more time, I probably would have done more. Okay, so let's talk about animation. So I tend to find, like, I have a similar approach as for the visual design, is that irregular, imprecise movement is more beautiful than perfect mechanical movement. No? Same as we tend to find these organic irregularities beautiful, we find the organic irregularities of movement beautiful because they are intricate, because physical things are more complex than just, I don't know, just, how do you say, like, they go down to an atomic level of detail. So the way you move is constrained to more things that you can possibly understand, right? So there's a common problem in digital animation. We have to do digital animation for a video game. There's no way around it. And there's a common problem is, yeah, you can draw your characters very organic looking, but then they move like a artificial puppet. And there's this clash. And it stops looking beautiful very fast. So you have to do some tricks to get around that. What I do is I try to make the process as close as possible to handmade. And I stick to 12 frames per second because I believe that the little gaps in the more less fluid animation leaves room for imagination. Like the gaps, your brain fills in the gaps. So again, you offload the hard part, all the details to the audience or to the medium. Like the tool is making the hard part for you, and you do the essential part. And you use a very simple skeleton. So this is the setup for characters in the game. The tool we use, which is called Spine, is based on these skeletons that have pieces attached to them. And so the skeleton is super, super simple because the legs, for instance, never change. And they're mostly universal. There are like 3 types of legs for all the characters. The hands are universal, and they're like, I don't know, 8 hand positions for all the characters in the game. The head is always in profile and never changes. And there are just 2 torsos. There's 2 torso pieces, one from the front, one from the back. And that's it. And it's enough. I also don't use mesh deformation as little as possible. I use it for dresses and for the coats, but just for those parts. Again, to stay simple. And the other detail is nothing is attached. Like there's no hierarchy. Everything is free floating. Like every bone is just free floating. And what that gives you is that you have to readjust the position of each piece by hand. And that gives you that tiny imprecision, that tiny imperfection that helps make the motion look more natural, more organic. Because you have to replace every little piece by hand, one by one. You get this similar effect to what you get with paper cutouts, where you cannot move things absolutely perfectly. So there's this always this little irregularity in the movement. So I personally try to focus a lot on small gestures and simple things, and take a lot of care of them. So this a nice animation, like. Oh, here's not super fluid, but you get the idea more or less. So the thing is, I pretty much move every piece, every frame. Almost. Like it's very rare that nothing moves. And there's a lot of this play of balancing. There's a lot of attention to people changing their balance, but very subtly. But you change your balance, the entire body moves. So this is a ton of work in terms of you have to move every single piece and very little amount, but without a hierarchy. So you move it by hand, but you get this nice organic looking motion that is subtle. There's a focus on mundane actions and their expression. So sitting at a table is like the basic, the most important thing in this game, because you sit at a table to play. And most most important characters in the game, and a lot, have their own way of sitting and standing up. And the way they sit and the way they stand is expressive of who they are, what their intentions are, etc. So this kind of flies by. You don't really realize, you don't really pay attention. But for me, it was very important, like the focus on how people sit. So, animation process. I don't know how common this is. Basically, I gradually developed this workflow, and it works great for me, and I thought you might find it interesting. Is that to make a complex animation like this, this is one of the most complex animations in the game, which I really like. Right. So how do you go about animating this? Well, for this game, and probably anything I would make like this, is everything is animated first. It's animated straight ahead. And I animate the key parts for the entire motion first. I don't go frame by frame with the entire skeleton. I just go with what is the leading part of the body of every motion. So I might start with the head for talking. I might start with the hands for grabbing something. I might start with the feet if you're stepping and changing your balance. And I will go just with the key parts and do the entire animation only on the key parts. And this looks like this. It is very effective because it helps you a lot focus on the balance, because you can see the relationship with the foot and the body and the head and where the hands are more abstracted, so it's easy to understand. It's also very fast to do. And the rest that is left is to fill in the blanks. Like basically, you sketch the broad actions and you fill in the blanks. And it makes a lot of sense also for me in that it's kind of closer to how you perceive your own motion. Like if I want to move my hand, I don't think about the entire arm. I just think where I want my hand. And the arm does the work. So if you animate the hand, and then this is just the connection to the hand. So it just has to be connected to the body and to the hand. So it's kind of obvious. And this is a very nice trick. There's also a lot of motion tricks, like how people turn around. With just two torsos and a single head, characters can move in 360 degrees. The legs never change because they look the same from all positions. They are just 2 feet, front and side. And I reuse the front side from when you're back because you cannot make the difference. And the head, to turn it around, instead of turning like this, you turn like this. You know? And that does the trick. And to make the transition between the torso on the front and torso on the back, what I do is dislocate the shoulder. So the shoulder, if I am in the front and going to turn back, the shoulder comes over top of the torso, and then the torso switches. So there's all these tricks that happen in the motion that make it look more fluid than what it is. And you're cheating all the time. Also, a lot of time dislocating or stretching arms more than they are, whatever. There's so many tricks. So you can see in motion how it looks. Here again, no, this little motion seems very fluid, and you never really realize. There's just two images that being swapped. This is another challenge. Okay, so having characters interact is super complicated. Motions with a single character doing things is easy, it's fine. Having characters actually touch each other and move each other is really difficult, because for a video game, this is just individual things. No, each character is an individual object that exists somewhere, and it has it's in a layer, and it's either in front of either behind. And first, to line them up, because they should be able to move freely, so they might not stop exactly when you expected them to stop. And the alignment of the animation is very easy to kind of disalign. And what happens when they need to interact in complex ways? For example, a problem here is a hug. How do you animate a hug? A character is at the same time behind and in front. No, part of, like, his arm is in front, his body is behind. But these are individual objects in the scene. So it's really difficult. So you try to minimize the amount of times you have to do this stuff, because it's complex to do. But here's a hug. And so the cheat here, this hand belongs to this black character in reality. You know? It's his other hand put here. So he's hugging like this. And you have to find all these cheats all the time to solve this, because there's actually no way to solve it. It just understands this is behind, this is in front. Another problem is in choreography, because, well, this is a byproduct of some of the artistic decisions. No, the artistic decision is to make big scenes so that the world feels large and that you are not just on a table claustrophobically focused. But then, how do you make dramatic, big moments that everything has to be really big? Like, small gestures won't be read at this scale. Small details, like a tiny object, you cannot show somebody taking like a spoon. It's just too small. So everything has to be big, and even if you make it as big as possible, it's still small. It still feels like a play, like a theater play. So these are difficult to do, and we did the best we could do, but it's a problem you try to solve. So here, for instance, the problem is the character is searching this other character and finding a deck in his pocket. You see how small that is. You know, there's no way, like, what do? You do pantomime. He shows the deck like this, you know? So these big moments are hard to make. And there was a lot of discussion in the script when we write in the game. Okay, this won't work because it's too small on screen. That happens so many times. So you have to all the time look for relatively big things happening so it's visible. And again, with these constraints, there's no real solution except to be, I guess, aware and try to maximize big motions. But it's an interesting problem. Okay, other lessons. There are other things that are not directly related to this. So, a few things I found out. Found out that there is an advantage of coming from different mediums to video games. The game has been quite consistently commented on how interesting, beautiful, different it looks, the animation, etc. And I don't think there's anything particularly innovative in what I did. Like, we're at a film festival, and if you watched a few of the sessions, you would have seen there's such a variety of art styles and animation styles. But you can go and ask yourself, okay, how many games have I seen with this style? There's basically none. Like the breadth of variety in video game world is very narrow. So it's quite easy to make something that looks different. So there's an advantage. It's an advantage from working in different ways, which you have learned lessons from other mediums and you can apply. And there's an advantage of just having a visual culture that maybe people specialized in video games for some reason just don't have. So it's kind of a cheat also. Like you just do the same thing that would not be considered new in another medium. You do it here and suddenly, oh, this is super innovative. You get a lot of attention just because the game looks different. So that's interesting. The fact that I did a bunch of different stuff made it easier to work with programmers, work with designers. That is true. That also helps. But just being curious about more stuff, I think it's really helpful. I found out that the audience of video games appreciate these kind of things. Like you might think by seeing what video games look like in the majority, that the people who like them a lot, they are really just have this taste. And it's not true. Like I've seen so many positive comments. So what I find out is people really appreciate this stuff. It's just there's lacks people doing it. So another thing that I found out is like drawing from like having variety of interests, hobbies, and drawing your ideas from there is very helpful because the idea from this game came from the fact that I'm an amateur magician. I do card tricks just for fun, for friends. And I started learning this. And this is how this came out. So in general, drawing from things that are close to you, it gives interesting results because you have a specific perspective to something that you particularly understand. And one very interesting one is I learned that as much as you can, you should solve technical problems yourself. And if it's too complicated, simplify it, basically. But I learned to not expect programmer magic. Like programmer or whatever you're doing, if you're doing a complex project with other people and there's some expert on something, I learned that it's better to try to solve it yourself. Because first of all, if you don't understand the thing and you expect some magic to happen by the expert, it's probably not going to happen because you just don't understand the thing. And you don't understand what it takes to make that magic happen. And you might think that, yeah, you just code some stuff and it will work. So this was a lesson. Like this, there is a moment in the game that we worked a lot of, and we spent so much time on this little thing. And this is maybe less than 1% of the game. We spent an incredible amount of time on this little idea. There is this idea in the game that there's one point when you learn how to throw cards in a hat, just like a dexterity trick. This is a real thing you can do, like flick cards and try to aim and try to get to the card. And this is deliberately presented as a pastime, as a something that is just there to fill in a little bit, but it's not important. And the idea of this is to later surprise the player. Is that later, at another point in the game, later at another point in the game, you're playing this game, and you're about to get arrested. And now you improvise, and you use your card throwing skills to frame an innocent player as a cheater. Yeah? So this is a very cool moment. And this happens once in the game, and it's very tiny. And it took us, this is probably the technique, the interaction in the game that we worked the most on, for this tiny moment. It was it was becoming a bit absurd by the end of the project. Like this was worked on from the beginning to the end of the project, like for lots of versions. And one of the problems with this is the original. This will not play, right? Because this is a GIF. What would be a way to make this work? Well, I guess I don't have an idea how to make this work. Well, this was the original sketch for when we proposed this idea. So, big problem with this is the perspective. Like this kind of required you to see where you're shooting. So if you're shooting at the chair, you kind of need to see the seat, and you need to see the card landing, and you need to see the person sitting on top of the card. So that forces you on this kind of perspective. But we're making a 2D game, and you have this interaction in space where a card has to fly and look like it's flying in 3 dimensions in this 2D aesthetic. Super hard, because you cannot just use a static animation. This needs to feel like a game. This needs to feel like you have control. You have to be able to miss. So what happens if the card lands under the chair? What happens if the card flies past the chair? What happens if the card goes like in all these places, and how it collides with the chair and everything? And we're in 2D. There's no way to understand depth properly, right? So my initial thing was, okay, well, we are doing, the game is made in Unity, it's a 3D engine, it has like 3D physics. Okay, why don't we simulate the card in 3D with physics, and we project it on a 2D plane, and it's done. And that's me expecting programmer magic. And of course that didn't happen, because it's too complicated, I have to set up so many things. Physics engines are very hard to work with, very time consuming to get everything right so that it looks correct. So they did a test in 2D physics, which was absolutely horrible. It didn't make any sense. And there were so many things that I don't have images of that looked so bad. Like this game looks, this moment, this interaction looked so bad for a very long time. And so at some point I said to myself that I try to solve it myself. Okay, let's try to solve the problem. And I figured out that I can do pseudo 3D. I can do the motion, like the flat motion of the card, as if you were seeing it from above. And then apply that motion to another bone that is deformed to look in perspective. So now this is flying sort of in 3 dimensions, and that bone I can control the height. And so now this card is flying in 3 dimensions. And I even ended up, like, it's more complex than that, because there's more hierarchy tricks and stuff, but I ended up having control even of the rotation and tilt of the card in 3D, because the card is just a flat rectangle. This is pretty simple. I mean, pretty simple. It did take about like 3 days of work to figure out, but it's doable. I like, oh yeah, probably you can deform this in a believable way. So in the end, this little bone that is there is controlling, like I can scale it, and it scales the entire animation. So you can shoot farther away or shorter, and you can rotate it in this deformed perspective, and you can shoot in different angles. And this solved pretty much everything. You have a single animation that you can just deform the bone and get all the different shots. So again, it was so much better to just have control and do it yourself than to expect somebody to come up with a magical solution. I even ended up doing this trail to kind of help you to aim. This was discarded. This was really bad. There are a lot of versions of the game that are really bad. Like that was just half the problem. The other half of the problem is making this play well. And it played so bad for so long. Like there you can see, no? The card collides with the chair in a way that doesn't make sense. The cards are not in perspective. The perspective from the floor is not correct. There's so many problems with trying to do something like this. So at the end, it just to make it look acceptable. This is another idea that is really bad. Because again, what do you do with the chair? No, you have this idea of this was really bad. This also was bad. Like, so it's incredible, no? Just you have this one idea that sounds really simple and straightforward, and then it becomes this huge, complicated thing. But was it worth it? That's the real question. Well, this is somebody playing the game.
Yep, done. Foof. And then shuffle them up. Yep. Okay, alright. That I have no sense of timing for. Shuffle it. Yep. Perfectly normal. Nothing weird here. You can cut it wherever you want as long as it's right there. Yes! He did it right there! Let's go! Hooray! Not again. My friends, you play a wicked game. I hope you're not cheating. Wow, that's a scary face. Rest assured, we're as honest as donkeys. The most noble of all animals. I'm gonna toss it. Shit. Oh. Oh, fuck. Oh, wait. I realized what I'm doing. Let's go! This is an amazing game. Shit. Okay. He's okay. 1, 2, and an ace. And then 1.
So yeah, the other thing I discovered is people play your games, and you can see how they think as they play, which is something you never get with film. It's super beautiful to see people react to every instant of the thing you've been working on, because in the cinema you just have people sitting watching it, and maybe later they tell you something. But here you actually see the thought process and the change of emotions and everything. So it's beautiful. So it works. I was so happy when we saw this. Like, all that work. What else? I'm almost done with this. So, yeah, I guess another thing I learned is, well, how scary video games are compared to films in terms of how easy it is for things to break. Everything breaks all the time, and in horrible ways, in the sense that a lot of the time it breaks for you don't understand why. And the sense that the game is done, and you release it, and people play it, and that everything will work as you expect, you never really feel that, because there's so many little things that can go wrong. From different systems and memory and whatever that makes the game not load, but to super specific conditions that are really hard to find. Like, they had some cases people were skipping scenes or getting stuck in a place where they cannot interact. Like, the game is running, but they cannot do anything, and they're just stuck. And this happens all the time. And you have to track what happened, why that. And the scary realization is that you never know, will it work? Really. You built all this, you work for months, carefully arranging all of these scenes, all of these moments, all of these interactions, so they create this effect. And then one little thing goes off, and the entire illusion is broken. Like, people suddenly are out of the narrative and out of the fantasy, and they are, this game broke. You know, they're completely out of the experience. And it's so fragile. Like, games are incredibly fragile. A film, at least, like, as many problems as you might have doing the film, once is whatever you manage to do is shot, you can edit it, you project it, and that cannot change. You know, it's always going to look the same. So you at least have that. But here you don't. So it's super, super scary. And sometimes it can change for any reason, like you renamed an animation, you know, and now, but maybe you renamed it 3 months ago, and you have not looked at that scene for a while, and now suddenly everything freezes because the game cannot find the right animation because it changed the name. And lots of stupid things like that that are a lot of the time very hard to track and very hard to understand. So games are super fragile, and that's very scary because you're never sure everything works or not. And the other last big lesson I guess I learned with this is this was very big, tiring, complicated project. No, this is 3 years of work for me. How do you work 3 years on something really focused that requires so much attention to so many things? Because there's so many variables. There's the sound, there's the writing, there's the game, there's the visuals, there's the animation. Like all these things have to interact, and you have to watch for all of these different things, and it's like your attention splits to so many areas to make everything work. So it's very hard to stay focused on, okay, what are we doing and what do we want to do? And also stay attentive and resourceful because you have to solve problems all the time. How do you do this? And so the way I found that is the most effective is to have a purpose for everything, is that have meaning in the work. Like I realized while doing this, in the middle of it, that if I just, because we have like 30 locations in the game, and if I just sit and try to work, okay, I have a list of things to draw. I have to do a gambling house. I have to do a bathing house. I have to do this palace. And this is just a huge to-do list. And you see it, and yeah, you draw your thing, and you cross your list, and slowly. And it becomes super boring. It's really, really tiring. Like a to-do list are horrible in a creative way. Like if it's just a to-do list, you get bored. You just want to get done with it. So the solution is have meaning behind everything. If what I'm doing is not just a to-do list, but I understand what the scene means, what it's supposed to achieve, why is it important, why are we making it, why cannot the game work without this scene, it's so much easier. So I started trying to find some kind of logic or some kind of narrative or effect or idea, even if the player will not get it, even if the audience will never know. At least if you know you are doing things for a reason, it's so much easier to concentrate and focus and work. Because first, you're excited, you can explain to other people, and you have a purpose, and it helps you make decisions. So one simple example is, we have this gypsy camp, which is this a place you go and meet some people, and they help you, and you help them, and this is a recurrent place. And the idea was that the camp changes places throughout the game because they are traveling and you are traveling. And so we settled on making 3 of these locations. Okay, 3 of these locations, but here's the problem, right? Okay, why 3 and how are they different from each other? What do we do with the design? No? Like I did this one, okay, it looks good, but what about the other variations? What should the landscape be? What should the place be? So we found this simple idea. As you progress through the game, you become richer because you're scamming and cheating more and more people, and you become rich, and your clothes change and all that. So why don't we do the opposite with the camp? That would be fun. That would be interesting. Like the idea that every variation looks more desolate and more broken and more dark. And so you get this contrast between you becoming richer and the camp looking poorer. And now it means something, you know, and now we can tie that into the bigger themes of the game, and it's more fun for me to draw because I can now make decisions. So simple decision was, apart from the colors, which is the obvious one, and you know, the trees and the stuff, it's just the idea of the sky. You'll see less and less sky with each one. There are more clouds and less amount of sky with each composition. And just a simple thing like this, I found it helps. And I think if I had to do another project like this, I would try to get everybody on team on board on meanings, like a lot, on why every little piece is being worked on, what does it mean, why it's important, what are the ideas behind. Because for me, it was not good to work with the mentality of a to-do list. So therefore, it's better if nobody works with that mentality of just a to-do list. That you work on a thing, you know it means something, so you're really working consciously on that thing that means something. And it's not just something to feel, yeah, I need more backgrounds, I need more characters, you know? They have to have some kind of significance to them. And that's it. If you like it, it's my website on Twitter, games website. Yeah, if anybody has questions, and I hope that was interesting, informative.
Nicolai, thank you very much. It was really a nice presentation. We have very short time for questions because we have to continue. But first of all, I really appreciate your developing method that you based on traditional touching of the materials. As you said, the old way of monotypes and printing system, I feel common vibration with you and all of our plans here. Also, we have a risograph workshop here in the next room. Nice. And I think it has the same way as you develop, a bit same, that you developed your famous astigmatismo, where you used a lot of illustrators, and but it was a real touchable thing because it was a traditional way of filmmaking.
Yes.
And you continue. It was very nice to see that you continue it in a video games. You could do it, so you could achieve it. It's very nice. In the beginning of the presentation, you had that Eastern European, it was a false
yes.
game.
Yeah.
But it for me or for us in Eastern Europe, it was really also touchable and that a bit black and white style. But it's a false game. My question is, don't you want to continue it as a short film maybe, or to do something with it, or just you finished it, okay?
No, I do think a lot about that project because it was very painful to cancel it. Like we just spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money into trying to make that work, and it was too complicated, and we failed. Like we didn't find a way to make it really work, and it was painful. It was sad because a lot of the ideas we're really excited about. So I do think about that project a lot. Okay, how could it be possible to be made? It made a lot of sense as a game, so I don't really think much about turning it into a film. Mostly because we have specific ideas for how that's interesting in interaction, and also it's underrepresented folk material in video games. Like we couldn't find a single video game based on Eastern European folklore. So that was very interesting to try to do one. And the source material is fascinating. Like all these tales and the aesthetics are so rich. So I probably will try at some point to build a simple prototype to see if I can get to make work the basic logic and see if I can revive that. But it's not dependent on me alone. Like I was working with another programmer, a very good designer, he was really exhausted by the process, and I haven't heard from him for a long time. So I also cannot resurrect the project alone.
Okay, and other question, that you educated students in last years a lot. What do you prefer to teach? Because you know the computers, also the traditional ways. So what is the first thing, what the main thing, what you want to teach to the students?
Well, what I would like to teach is, I don't know, like the fascination of movement, no? Like how to make this beauty, no? from little things. And it's very hard to find a way to do that that is digital. Like I've been required to teach computer animation, and I found that for students that know nothing and are early new, it's so much better to do it with physical medium. They learn faster, they understand it better. Like the times I was able to get them to do things, which was very hard to organize because the place where I was teaching didn't have any infrastructure specifically for traditional animation. It was very good. Like you can see the excitement, you can see the interest. When you know nothing of animation, you see them in front of the computer, have to teach an interface and technical aspects of a tool. It gets, people are bored. Like and it's just required that didn't find a way to skip that and go into the fun parts. You know, like the fun parts of animation for me usually became the end of the year, and that's because of the tool, because you have to teach so much of the tool. Well, you can get like a tiny pieces of paper and a camera, and it's immediately fun. So if I had the possibility, I would try to start with just pieces of paper, sand, paint on the glass, things like that, and just work on yeah, the beauty and the feeling of motion.
Any questions from the audience, please? You have? I'll give you the microphone.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I've never worked on a video game, but it was actually very eye-opening and easy to follow.
Thank you.
I was wondering, could you tell us some more about the way you choreograph scenes and the way you think about movement? If you use any visual references, if you use any live action references or film?
No, I didn't use any references. So yeah, the choreography it's a big problem. I don't know, it's a complex problem because for this game particularly, because of how these things are made, you think of it a lot like a theater play. It's okay, who moves where, who occupies what space. So first thing I try to use the composition of the background. Okay, where is space for characters? Where can they be so that the interaction is clear and understandable and focused? And this again is a complex problem of how you make a big this was a big production for me. This is a small production in scale of video games, right? But for us it was big. And sometimes it wasn't really like, how do you say? There wasn't a straight method because sometimes I had to have designed, because of schedule and organization, I have to have done the background before the scene is written. And so I didn't know what will happen in the scene. And so in some cases I was adapting what was made into what later was required and try to find a creative way. In that sense, you're feeling a bit like a film director that arrives at a set and it's like, okay, this is the set and this is where a camera fits, and you try with your actors. Okay, you stand there and see if that works. You try to picture it, you know, and try little things. So in other cases, I was able to anticipate what will happen. And so everything is designed purposefully. But yeah, I guess to summarize is, where is the attention? You know, how does the attention flow? Because this is a static image. You cannot see everything at once. So I guess I think a lot about what is the flow of general movement. I then work on individual movements and try to make them really big in this case, because yeah, as it's a bit small, all gestures has to be really, really large. But it's a complicated problem. There's not really a single answer.
Okay, thank you so much, because the balance of movement and like the way that the scenes hold your eye is really, really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Yes.
I would like to thank you for the presentation too. I really liked it. So my question would be if it was an important thing to you to make the dresses and the backgrounds like historically accurate, and if yes, did you find any really good resources? Because the whole thing is set in a specific time and space, and I was just wondering.
Yes, I did care a lot about accuracy. I wanted to look, there's a tiny bit of exaggeration. You know, like same as with the backgrounds, which are all impossible ceilings, but everything is grounded in reality. Like all the backgrounds are also researched. And a lot of the locations are based on like prints, old prints that I found, like of Paris and of other cities. And I got to find out what like Paris and Versailles looked like at the time. So it was a specific reference for that. And for the dresses and costumes, the same. I looked at a lot of stuff. And I found, yeah, mostly things online. After a lot of search, I cannot tell you from like memory because basically I was building over the like first 2 years or so. I was building like these folders of references, and it's huge. I have a lot of stuff in it. But I had engravings and photos of actual costumes from the time. I also took snapshots of movies made showing the time period to get references from there. And I was worried a lot about like wigs and everything like that. So, like, everything reflects to things that exist. For one, I have a question because I solved one thing, which was for dresses, I found some videos. There is interesting. There is some stuff about how people used to dress in 70s. There's videos on YouTube, and they show you a person dressing layer by layer. Because this is one of the things you never see. When you look for clothes, you always see like the dresses. Okay, but what did they wear underneath? You didn't know. I was really curious. I wanted to understand the how the dress was structured and things like that, and what is underneath, what is over. So I found that there are some videos of people showing you actually the whole process and all the different parts and all the different things and how they are strapped and what is a button and what is tied. And one thing is women's dresses all had pockets. I found out this. They all had pockets, and they had all as opening in the side for the pocket on both sides, and big pockets. So this was a big question because we needed pockets in the game. There's moments where you steal cards, you put it in the pocket, and the moments where a female character does this. So I needed. It was obvious that a jacket has a pocket because it's visible. But I wasn't sure, like, do dresses have pockets? And I found out, yes, absolutely all of them. Like, this is a modern thing, dresses without pockets.
Thank you. I have a question too. So I think that people probably have played cards for centuries. And why did you exactly choose this time period and this location for the game?
It fit very well. The first reason was the idea for this came from the movie Barry Lyndon, Stanley Kubrick classic movie. And it's set in this time period. In Barry Lyndon, there's a famous scene when the hero cheats at cards. It's a very short scene. It's a very 3-hour movie, and this is like a 10-minute scene. But part of the idea of the game came from there. And so it was natural to stay in that time period. Second reason is just really good visual material, like the architecture, the dresses, the music. It's really rich material for audiovisual stuff. No? Third reason is card playing as a pastime and like serious gambling was super big at the time. That's one of the main entertainments. And all sides of society engaged in games of cards for money. So it's like if you have to choose between these and modern time in Las Vegas, like this is so much more attractive. No? I didn't want to draw casinos. So And a fourth reason, and this was more from the writer's perspective, when we started talking about it, the writer was very interested in writing this because he studies history, and history of France specifically, and there's not many things set in pre-revolution France, especially in video games. And he found that this thematically is a perfect time because it's a time where there is still this hierarchy of aristocracy and monarchy where people are really stuck socially in a lot of people is really poor and they cannot jump to the higher states of society except by cheating. So it kind of felt like a natural, very appropriate time setting because also just pre-revolution. So all of this is about to crumble. It's like a social moment which is about to disappear, but it's still in place. And so it's a perfect moment for cheats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, really nice, both visually and the idea. Can I ask, like, when you make a film, you make like a dossier and you, I don't know, have a pitch Bible and you go places and pitch it. How was that for the video game and from you coming from an animation background? And how did you pitch these? Find the people?
Very different, mostly because you don't get grants, so you don't need like you get private investment in terms of a publisher, right? A publisher who gonna advance the money for the production and then will take a cut of the sales of the game. And honestly, they don't need much. You can sell a video game with a video, like with I don't know, 1 minute video of the game in motion. And it doesn't have to be the actual game running. You can just fake it in I don't know, After Effects or whatever. Like, they don't need much. They need like a concept and something strong that looks like a thing that can work. Of course, quite soon you also need a prototype. But you can kick things off with just images, mock-ups, an animation depicting what it should look like and how it's supposed to play. If you can capture, I know some studios manage to like finance a game with just a GIF, with like a 10-second GIF of something, and it just looks fun. You know, you can capture in 10 seconds of motion something that looks fun to play. Well, people are interested, and of course, yeah, you can get, I guess, initial interest and initial support with just that, and then you need to build a prototype. And once you get a prototype, and the prototype actually delivers what was promised in this idea, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to look like, okay, this has potential, then it starts rolling from there. Basically, at some point, you get some kind of contract and some kind of deal.
Thank you.
But then we have to break a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. Yes. And thank you for sharing your tricks actually, because we got a lot of practical stuff.
Thank
My
you.
question is if you will move into gaming more or go back to filmmaking or both, and if you are playing the game, like after you.
If I do play the game?
Yes.
Okay, so, well, I start with the first, which is not fully decided, but I want to do both things. Basically, I miss doing films because this was a lot of work on this. And I do want to go back to making films, and I have plans to make another short film. But I also want to, at some point return. I don't want to do it right away, like it's too much. I want to take a break, so work on other stuff. Also at the moment I'm learning to do live visuals for music, which is a completely different area, and is very interesting for me at the moment. So I'm developing that, maybe film, and maybe then going back to video games. It's an exciting medium. It's interesting to work. There's so many things to do, and there is room to do new things. which I find harder in other mediums because they're older. Just the fact that this is younger, there's so much more stuff to do that is new. And if I play the game, not really. Like I played it so much during development that you have to replay the scene 1,000 times because it breaks, and here it doesn't work, and here this doesn't play, and I have to try this variation. And what if the player does this? And what if the player does that? And so at the end is, also I know the game by heart. So for me, this is no challenge. I just play everything perfect, you know, without any emotion, because I made it. Like I decided everything. So for me, it's boring. But I do enjoy a lot of watching people play it. I watched a lot of people playing. And I'm very happy that it worked. Like the guy you saw, there's a bunch of people like that, and it's super entertaining. And I was surprised that the game works a lot, very well as a show. People want to watch it, not only play it. People get entertained by the story, get entertained by the people struggling to make the tricks and getting nervous. It's super satisfying to see people enjoy it. So, and fascinating, yeah. As I said, there's an experience you don't have with film. So you get hooked to watching people and seeing their reactions. And you learn a lot. It's super, super useful. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nicolai. We will take a little break and we continue the Prima Anima Academy, I think at 1:45. So come back online also. Thank you very much.